I love the idea that that guy gets a new goldfish sticker anytime that he gets a new goldfish, and then he just crosses them out, and then eventually the whole window is just going to be covered in all these dead goldfishes. By round of applause here, who's on Tinder? Alright, that's about the response I anticipated for Tinder. It sucks, man. Tinder's real bad. I think the greatest thing that's ever happened to the SPCA was when men on Tinder realized that women like dogs. They know I can't swipe left on a dog. I don't care if you look like Chess Crosby's butthole. If you got a beagle, I'm in. I'm getting pretty desperate though. Before I came here today, I took like 2 minutes to decide whether I should swipe right or left on a guy with a mullet. Do you think I should do it? Do it? Okay, I might. Who wants to hear about my medical problems? All right. I have PCOS. If you don't know what that is, it's like stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. So it means I have a lot of cysts on my ovaries. So basically, if you crack me open, I'm like a cursed gumball machine. And if you get the black gumball, you don't get a free movie rental, apparently. It's got a lot, I call it a teenage boy disease because it makes you have like extra testosterone. And so a lot of the symptoms of it are like facial hair, acne, sweating, hungry, just so fucking horny. Just so horny, and only the way you can be if you're like 12 years old and you have a hot science teacher. When I found out I had it, I was just like desperately just trying to rub my clit just on anything, much to the dismay of my family, I will add. So they actually prescribe you birth control for PCOS, which is a little ironic because one of the symptoms is that it can cause infertility. Yeah, a little bit of a barren Sharon or an infertile Myrtle, if you will. So I was taking my birth control one day, and my ex-boyfriend was there, and I was like, I gotta take my no baby pills. And he was like, you don't take your birth control not to get pregnant, like you take it for your PCOS. That's very rude, right? Let me just pretend for a minute that my insides are just nubile and just beautiful, sleek, just hungry for male sperm. You know, they're just hungry for children, like the witches from Hocus Pocus, just desperate for a child. Meanwhile, they look like they were in Chernobyl, and they act like an old man trying to get a kid off the lawn. What else do I have to say? I'm on Tinder. I am seeing someone now. Yeah, it's pretty new. He's a weird guy. Does anyone know what Magic the Gathering is?
Yeah.
Woo! Yeah, okay. It's a card game, and if you're not familiar, it's a card game for grown adults, and it's kind of like Pokemon or something. It's a trading card. I don't know how it works, but it's mostly for men whose body hair starts here and ends just right below the chin, just up the neck mostly. He took me recently. There was like a release of cards or something, so I had to go to a Magic store. And just to give you an idea of what it was like in there, I was the only woman. The place was packed, and there were signs up that said, "You will be asked to leave if you smell like body odor or urine." And not everybody was obeying the sign. So yeah, I've been dating a guy who plays Magic cards, so I've been getting a lot of unsolicited deck pics. It also works if you're dating like a 45-year-old man, like Bayman dad, and he's like, "Look at that dandy deck buddy has out in Flat Rock," and he just sends you a picture of people's new decks. That's what my dad would do if he was dating. The other thing that the guy I'm seeing does, it's kind of weird. Like he says really weird shit all the time. Like he's like very robotic in weird ways, or just says things that are really like strange. I have trouble orgasming. I think a lot of women struggle with that, and I was explaining it to him, and I was like, you know, it can be difficult to get me there. It's, you know, there's kind of like a formula to it. And he was like, oh, like a stew. No, not like a stew at all. That's not how I would describe that. And he writes fantasy, like, writing stuff, and I haven't read it, and I shan't. But I can only imagine that that's what it all sounds like. Like, he's just writing, like, the princess was lying on the bed, her skin was soft, supple, and white, like a stew. Just all of his metaphors and imagery are stew-related for some reason. And I was talking to a friend who's a chef about this, and I said what he said, and she was like, the weird thing about a stew is it's very much not formulaic. Like, there's no recipe for a stew. You kind of just, like, chop things up. And, like, so that means I know two things about him. A, he can't make me come, and B, and most importantly, he can't make a stew. He said if he ever asked me to marry him, he's going to tell me that this stew has been in the oven too long. And I told him if I wanted to have kids, if I got pregnant, I was going to tell him that there was a doughboy in the stew. So that'll be fun. Was anyone else here a really weird kid? Yeah, I was a weird kid. I was really into mummies. Did anyone else have an ancient Egyptology phase? Yeah? No? Okay, just me. It's a weird thing for kids to be into, especially when you're like 5. It doesn't help you making friends. Every time I get in a situation where I can make a little friend, I'd fuck it up. I'd say some weird shit, like if we were like on a team together in like soccer, I would always say something like, did you know that in ancient Egypt, when they were preparing the corpse for burial, they'd actually remove the brain through the nose using a specialized instrument? And the other kid would be like, we don't want you on our team anymore. Miss, can we have a do-over? She's talking about corpses again. But yeah, my parents encouraged that. They would buy me books about mummies. I had books like with a crypt keeper on the cover in my little Winnie the Pooh backpack. Just books full of corpses. I knew so much about it. And my mom used to make me watch America's Most Wanted with her every night. Do you remember that show? It's about child murder. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the motivation. There's a bone. There's a bone here. That's unrelated. So I got distracted by the phone. I don't know what her motivation was for making me watch that. I think it was like if I learned about kids getting kidnapped, I'd stop running away from her in public. I was one of those kids that was on a leash. But here's the thing, even at 5 years old, I knew that the majority of child kidnappings are done by one of the parents. So it just made me really suspicious of her. Happy birthday, Mom. That's even your real name. But I think that there's like solid diet of like child murder shows, and like I used to read the Goosebumps. Does anyone else read those Goosebumps books? Yeah, so are we all psychologically damaged, or is it just me? Okay, perfect. I think that was just me. That's what you guys were telling me, no, you're fucked. The reason I think I'm psychologically damaged is I had my sexual awakening to The Mummy from The Mummy. And I'm not talking that new shit with Tom Cruise, no. I'm talking 1999, Brendan Fraser, set in Egypt. Yeah, set in Egypt, not a single person of color. Some of the white people wore bronzer, and that's about it. So I'm talking about that movie, and if you've seen that movie, I know what you're thinking. The Mummy's like pretty hot, like he's a hunky like guy wearing eyeliner. You know, it's not so weird to be into that. But he was a mummy, so sometimes his skin would just fall off. I was still into it. Yeah, okay, thank you. And I'm not saying that makes me a danger to myself or others, but I will say that I don't bring it up at therapy very often. All right, thank you so much.